Hello and welcome to episode 259 of Page One, the Writers Podcast. I'm Marco.
I'm Tarek.
And thanks for joining us on the podcast where we like to speak to writers of all kinds about their writing careers, find out how they got into the industry and try and get as many hints and tips from them as possible. And we have got a huge back catalogue of guests there. Over the past 3 weeks, we've been doing special crossover episodes with our new podcast, Narrative Damage, which is focused on role-playing games and the stories you can tell with those. And we've just released the first actual play, which is sort of authors sitting around the table actually playing one of these games. It's a lot of fun. We've dropped it on the Page One feed, but it's also going to have its own feed. So if that is of interest to you, or even if it isn't, I would encourage you to give it a listen. But if it is of interest, then I would encourage you to subscribe to that separate Narrative Damage feed. I'll put a link in the podcast description, and also, of course, its own YouTube channel where you can watch it all as well.
Because it's a 3-part special, but only part 1 is going to be available to Page One subscribers. So if you like part 1 and you want to listen to parts 2 and 3, get over to Narrative Damage. Check that out.
If you want to know what happens to Donovan Ramsbottom, Tarek's character.
I still can't remember what his first name was. I flipped back and forth between the two of them so often.
Yes, there's a running joke about that. But yes, so anyway, let us resume normal service, and probably there is a vast swathe of you that are breathing a sigh of relief. No more silly games. Although there is game chat in this episode.
There is game chat, because this week we're chatting with the wonderful Abigail Dean, who, like Mark and myself, began as a lawyer by day, crime writer by night. She's written, the latest book is The Death of Us, which is a really fantastic, I think she describes it as a crime novel stroke love story kind of mixed together, and that is very much what it is. It's a aftermath of a home invasion. A couple are attacked, and it's the impact that attack has on them over the next 20, 30, 40 years, etc., going forward. And it's a really fun chat we have with her. We chat about, working the day job as a lawyer, getting the first book deal, getting the agent, and yeah, as Marco says, Final Fantasy VII, if you're a gamer, has a big influence on her as well. So I'll save that for the podcast. But it's a really, really fun chat we have.
Yeah, no, it is. She's a great guest. So there's a lot covered in this chat. So we will get into it after a quick advert for a writer's notebook. I've not said that for a few weeks. I think you thought it was gone, but it's back. And also what I haven't said is we do have a Patreon as well, where you can support the podcast. So all of this stuff, in a slightly more serious note, all of this is, we put it out for free. It does take a lot of time and effort. So
especially for Marco.
Yes, especially for me.
Justice for Marco. This poor guy's literally been spending every week an hour of the last month on this stuff.
If you enjoy the podcast, if you enjoy this, if you enjoy drafted notes, then please do have a look at our Patreon. You get all sorts of benefits if you do join up at different tiers, but you can also just support us there as well. Any support is appreciated. You can even join for free and join the Discord as well. So I'll put a link for that in the podcast description as well. But anyway, I said we were getting on, so we will. Let's get on with the interview. Did you always want to be a writer?
Yes. Yeah, I did. For as long as I can remember anyway, I was definitely that kid who was at school, sort of like stapling together 3 bits of paper and like making people read it, like doing my initials as my publishing house.
Nice.
So, fancy.
So I did, yeah. How pretentious, I know, yeah. So
did you have your own imprints as well? Different imprints for it?
I should have done, shouldn't I? I didn't get quite that far, but yeah, I think as a kid I did. As a teenager, I still did. I was like writing fan fiction in its earlier days. And I think in my kind of university, I lost confidence a bit. And I sort of felt like, this is not like a realistic job, is it? Like, this is never going to happen. And certainly turned much more kind of away from creative stuff and needed a job that would like pay the rent, to be honest. So then there was a sort of like fallow period in my 20s when I hardly wrote at all, and then only came back to it just kind of coming up to my 30th birthday. So yes, in short, but definitely with a few lulls in the process.
But you made the same mistake that Tarek and I both made, which was to become a lawyer in the meantime as well.
Yeah, I knew I did.
It's a strange thing that there are a lot of authors that have dabbled in the law or still work in the law actually as well. It's obviously a career that that a lot of frustrated writers go into to earn money while they try and keep writing, I guess.
Do you think it's because if you're sort of lucky enough to be relatively academic and you want to work with words, it's like, okay, you don't want to work with numbers, so you'll have to
that's right. I think it probably is that. Yeah,
that was my thinking anyway.
I remember getting stressed about just thinking, what job will I get? Like I remember getting to the end of like S5, applying for university and stuff, and it felt like there was 4 jobs out there, and lawyer was one of them. And I was like, well, I mean, I didn't do that. I did science, and then got to the end of that, and I was like, well, I don't know what job.
You had actually escaped, and then went back.
I'd escaped, and I went, but then I did a conversion course like
I
yourself,
did warn
Abigail.
you, Tarek,
you did warn me. You tried to warn me off it, Mark, and I was like, shut up, Marco. You're just old and jaded, and now I'm the one warning other people off it. But I read that you were supremely obsessed and inspired by Final Fantasy as a young kid, and that was a lot of your fiction you would write. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Final Fantasy VII was like a real childhood obsession for me. I actually still have in my office. I have a Final Fantasy VII poster,
Nice.
and I think some of that is first because I grew up in a very small village and I loved stories, and I still very, very big kind of believer that video games can be magnificent stories and just a different way of telling a story, and really kind of I don't kind of regret the hours that I spent playing them one bit. But it's also a game, I actually still think now, I still talk very passionately about it. that like it's such a great story. It says so much about like memory and kind of character development, and it's one of I won't spoil it in case anyone's not played it, but still one of the most shocking character deaths of all time in that game. So yeah, I'm still I still feel just as enthusiastic about it as I did when I was like 11.
Have you played the remake?
My husband has, but I have not, because I'm clearly old-fashioned purist. Mostly because I have 2 children. There's not as many hours as there used to be, but maybe one day.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. It's excellent. It does a very good job of updating it and stuff. So yeah.
That's good.
Anyway, this isn't the Final Fantasy VII podcast, so I will.
Yeah, I'm here.
But just to sort of tie it back to writing, I guess, which is sort of what you were alluding to there. Although I'm sure, as playing it as a kid, you were playing it because it was a game, and that was the thing. But I think over time, video games have become a very real source of great stories. That I think people that have never touched a video game, they sort of dismiss them, but there are great stories. Final Fantasy, but then more modern ones like Last of Us, and even things like Red Dead Redemption and stuff like that.
I was going to say Red Dead Redemption, yeah.
They have great character arcs. A lot of depth to them, because you're playing them for 60, 100 hours or something like that. So they are, where maybe previously people only found those stories in books or maybe films or stuff like that. Video games, I think, are ever growing as a source of good character writing generally.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I also think the 60 hours allows you to kind of get to know characters in a slightly different way, in a way that I actually really enjoy, and I kind of try to put in my own books and see and enjoy in other writers' books, which is, sometimes there are these kind of like huge scenes and huge kind of like really important moments in a kind of obvious way. But I think you also want these kind of quieter moments with the characters, and you want you want kind of like the side quests at times where it's not part of like the main plot, but you learn a lot from like people going to a restaurant or kind of like their profession or kind of in those like slower moments. And that's one of the things that I love about video games, actually, that they have like that sprawling quality where you feel like you get to know a character inside out.
Yeah.
And there's just so many good things about it. I really despise the attitude that some people have of like, gaming, it's like such a immature pastime. Like, that shows you've probably never actually played an
100%. Yeah. And probably would be surprised at some of the good film TVs shows that they are based on games that they might not be aware of, like Last of Us and stuff like that. But I know you did English lit at uni, and then you were talking about doing journalism for a while, right? Because you did a internship at Tatler, I think. What was that like?
I did. I did an internship at the Times, an internship at Tatler. It wasn't for me. I was felt very diplomatically. For a start, the first thing I'd say is I actually don't think I was very good. I don't think I was very good at it. And I think at the time, was pretty, my writing style was very kind of convoluted, I think. And I don't think I quite had grasped that journalistic style of writing, of being much more kind of conversational and to the point. So there was that. I actually think it was a kind of good lesson for me that I kind of thought I'd be able to do this. I couldn't. And I guess I found the atmosphere at Tatler quite intimidating. Famously kind of not necessarily the most welcoming of publications. It just wasn't for me. And I do just remember a few kind of encounters that were very Devil Wears Prada.
Right.
Okay. Like I was sent at one point, the whole team, the sort of important members of the team were going to Paris Fashion Week. And one of the editors sent me out to Oxford Street to try to find a totally plain pair of white socks. Like, they couldn't have like any logo or any like, any sort of like visible stitching on them. And I just remember like running between department stores just trying to find these socks and failing. I kind of got back like sweating. I was like,
I've been to university.
Exactly. Snuggle those 3 years. So valuable. Just sort of totally failing in my errand facing the wrath of this editor. So that there were too many moments like that. And I think that when I then did a law internship, I was kind of like, oh, well, at least nobody's asking me to go and find socks. This is going to be the one.
So, I mean, you did work as a lawyer. I think you worked for Google, in fact, as a lawyer. But, you said earlier that you had sort of, I guess, lapsed in your writing for a period. What was it that drew you back into it?
It was, so I guess when I was working as a lawyer, so I started in private practice when I was 24. And I was still in private practice when I was 29. And I mean, it's probably there's no revelation to you that I private practice is often like very long hours. There's a lot of time at your desk. There's very demanding clients, that are kind of paying quite a lot of money, and you should be providing a certain level of service. So I guess I kind of got to 29. I felt like I'd spent pretty much my whole 20s sitting behind a desk, and I had definitely got to the stage where I was starting to resent missing things. Missing birthdays and missing kind of weekends, and I felt like I kind of wasn't quite living as I wanted to. And I kept saying to my husband, who's also a lawyer, I kept saying to him, what I'd really like to do is to write. Like, I'd really love to like be an author. And he turned around to me one day, obviously pretty fed up of these conversations. And he said, well, he said this nicely, if you want to be a writer, you have to write something. I'm so like, what a terrible truth. And it did, I think, make me think a bit. If I don't change something, I will in another 10 years, I will still be here and I still won't have written anything. And I'll still be kind of bemoaning the fact that I'm not a writer, having done nothing to make any effort to try to be one. So I sort of decided I would make a few changes, and I left the law firm where I was working and I took the summer off and started writing Girl A. So I had 3 months of kind of absolutely no work whatsoever, which was a real privilege to have. And decided I'll write my novel. This is the summer. It's gonna happen summer 2018. And obviously I didn't finish a novel in 3 months, but I got far enough, I think. And I was so kind of invested after that 3-month period that when I then started working at Google, I was kind of very, very determined to try to see it through. And it took another year to sort of finish the novel, but I think that 3 months was what I needed to just kind of step away from anything else. I feel like I'm sort of probably preaching to the choir that you get a certain amount of the way through a novel, and you've got your kind of characters, and you know where everything's going sometimes, and then you're kind of it's very hard then to leave that story behind.
I mean, how did you find writing that first novel then? In terms of, you had these 3 months, but am I right in saying this was the first novel you tried to write as well? So it was your first time writing a novel or story of that length, I suppose.
I'd written a novel when I was a teenager, when I was like 17, 18, that I'd sent it out to agents and heard nothing. Those are the days, you sent off your like hard copy in the post. And
self-addressed envelope and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I had done that and heard nothing, but this was sort of the second round, I guess.
Well, what was the first novel like? Was it a similar kind of crime?
It was pretty
story?
dark. Yeah, it was kind of like probably more like young adult.
Okay.
Young adult style. But it was it was like a really, really rubbish version of 13 Reasons Why.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It was like, it was like the child version, like the childish, like sort of like crayon version of that.
But you with Girl A, it took you that time. It took you a bit longer, but you got the bug. You wanted to finish it. You finished it. What was the steps after that? How long did it take you to find an agent when you started querying that?
After that, I had a lot of fortune, really. So I think I finished it. I'm very much a writer who edits as I go. I would love to be able to write quite a messy first draft. It's not me. I write very ploddingly. So I think I probably edited it for a month or two. But I say that with a caveat that I go really slowly first time round. And then I sent it off to 6 or 7 agents and heard back from 3 of them. And so that then felt kind of like an immediate change from the silence before. And the reason I actually went with my agent, with Juliet Mushins, was she was the agent who felt that it needed work. So she said, I'm not going to send it straight out to publishers. I think it's great, like happy to sign, but we're going to have to work on this for 4 or 5 months, and then I'll send it out. And I think that really appealed to me, because I kind of didn't know what I was doing, and I liked the idea that it would be a collaboration, that we'd make this thing better together.
What sort of things were you working on? What was the suggested changes that she was bringing to it?
Some of it was kind of like pacing, and it was making sure that the big reveals in the book were really hitting hard, that they weren't kind of whispering, as I think they were in my draft, that they were kind of really things that a reader would remember. And there was character work as well, with certain of the kind of siblings in the family in the book. I think some characters were stronger than others. And there was also something that I think I really learned from in Girl A in particular, was kind of like what to reveal and what not to reveal, especially in crime books. It is always that balance when it comes to violence, of what you show, what you don't show, why you're doing it, whose perspective you're seeing it from. And I don't think I had that right in the first draft of Girl A. And I think by the time it kind of was published, I think it was a much better novel, because I don't think you read the book and take away the horror of it. I think you take away other things.
Yeah,
I'm not so much quite the case first time round.
I mean, it was a huge success when it came out. I think it's fair to say, you had like bidding wars on both sides of the Atlantic, multiple bestseller lists, awards. How did that feel to receive that kind of
Terrible
recognition
a bit.
for it? Yeah, I'm sure it was awful. Yeah, what a stupid question. Did you like that? Did you pleased with that?
It was very surreal. I mean, it all happened. The publication of it kind of happened in the middle of COVID, so life felt very surreal anyway, I think. And I was sort of slightly cut off. It felt slightly sort of like detached from the world at the time. You still couldn't go into a bookshop in January 2021 when it came out. So that was quite odd. But it was just, it was absolutely incredible. I think it is just the case that when you've lived with characters for so long and obsessed about them and being kind of so invested in them, to see anybody sort of share that, and for people to develop their own relationships with those characters, whether they absolutely hate them or adore them. Part of me kind of doesn't care, as long as you like feel something for them. That's what I just love, like hearing readers' opinions about different kind of plot points, or like, why did she do that? That I think is such a joy of being a writer, and it's how I feel about so many books. I kind of just want to talk about them, and I think when people want to talk to you about your book, that's very, like, really special.
Yeah. And your latest book is Death of Us, and it's out in paperback. Do you want to tell the listeners or viewers about that? Give us the pitch.
Sure. The Death of Us, it's a love story. It's a love story that's interrupted by a kind of crime novel, is how I think of it. So it follows two characters, Isabel and Edward, and they meet when they're 19 in Manchester, and they're students, and they fall in love, and life kind of goes pretty well for them. And they move together to London, they buy a house, and one night when they're 30, that house is invaded. They wake up at 3 a.m. and there's a man in their bedroom. And this man will go on to become an infamous serial killer, but they are the last couple to survive their encounter with this man. But his invasion of their home, like, changes the whole course of Isabel and Edward's relationship. And we meet them when they're 55, and they're long since divorced. And they're notified that this man, this kind of serial killer, has finally been caught by the police. He's an old man, he's 70. But they're summoned to court to deliver their impact statements to him. And that kind of forces them back together. So yes, it's a love story. It's a kind of story of a long manhunt. It's a bit of like a will they, won't they? Will they, won't they get back together? And I guess it kind of just asks whether that night is the death of them, or whether there's kind of some hope there for how they live their lives and for their relationship too.
Yeah. I've got about 45 minutes left on the audiobook, so don't spoil the will they, won't they ending for me, please. But it's fantastic. It's a fantastic book. I've really loved it, and I think it's really interesting how you take this, you choose to tackle the impact of the incident rather than the focus being on the killer or the violence act themselves, and obviously that's a conscious choice. I wondered what it is about it that, and it's similar with Girl A, I think, as well, in that horrible things have happened, but it's not the focus of the story, isn't watching these things unfold. It's kind of people's response to them and the impact and the fallout of it. So I wonder why is that your kind of go-to?
I find it really interesting, I suppose, to see characters who have been through something awful, and how they live after that. I suppose in the kind of immediate aftermath, but also then in the long aftermath. Because I always think that when you see news stories, something will be in the news for a few weeks, something kind of terrible, and then it falls out of the headlines, and as it should, because people need their privacy and people need to kind of have that space. But there's like a lot of that story left, I suppose, is what I always think. And so for me, that the way humans behave then is something that I'm always going to be fascinated with, like how it changes your relationships with yourself, with the people around you. Because I think it also gives space in a novel for a lot of kind of tenderness and hope and kind of humor as well, seeing how people kind of live in the years, not just in the kind of weeks.
Yeah.
But so I think that's it. Like it's that kind of what next, and I've always been interested in that, like in that what next question. And then in The Death of Us, I was particularly interested in the sense of a romantic relationship, and a relationship that seems kind of, for the most part, really positive, with like good communication and quite like modern gender roles. But how does this kind of evening totally obliterate that? And is it possible to sort of find your way back to each other or not?
Mm-hmm. And did you find it difficult? Because obviously, as we talked about, the success of Girl A was great, and must have been brilliant for you. But at the same time, did that make it more difficult to sort of find this story and write this one, or were you able to sort of just lock that away and just concentrate on this one?
I really struggled with day one, my second book. I really, really struggled to write it, and it coincided with having my first baby, and I felt a lot of the kind of pressure from Girl A then, and the writing experience just wasn't a particularly positive one. Like it was a difficult few years of it felt a bit like wrestling. Whereas with The Death of Us, weirdly, The Death of Us was kind of my first idea for a novel post being a teenager. So the idea for it had come to me back in 2012 when I moved to London. I moved with my boyfriend, and we, life was kind of like very easy, I guess, in a way. Like we had kind of jobs and we had a lot of friends, and everything felt kind of quite almost like frictionless, I suppose. And it was also coincided with that kind of explosion of true crime in the media, on Netflix, in podcasts. And at that time, I remember reading about the Golden State Killer and how he had targeted kind of generally middle-class couples in California in the 70s and 80s. And I think those two kind of, like that stage of my life, kind of became slightly entangled with reading and listening to various things about this case. And I suppose it was just a question then of what kind of a violent crime would do to a romantic relationship. Because I think everyone likes to think you would come out stronger. And, you would kind of bond over this awful shared thing. But actually that feels quite wishful thinking. And, I suppose as like crime novelists, you can often looking for the kind of darker things that would happen, and the kind of blame and potential resentment and shame. And I suppose those were those kind of questions had been percolating for a very, very long time. So I decided to go back to that story. And I suppose I thought now is the time to try to write it. And I said that weirdly, The Death of Us, I think, was like a book I'd been waiting to write for a long, long time and hadn't been quite ready to write it. And it felt, it was time.
When you're writing a book like this, I wondered kind of about your like the process and stuff, and you kind of mentioned about your redrafting it as you go almost, but when it comes to like the get your head in the right character space for writing it, I suppose on the one hand you've got, because the book has two timelines, you've got the kind of the incident kind of leading up, the events leading up to the incident and the incident itself, and then the kind of 20 years later kind of side of it. And I wonder, how do you get yourself in that headspace for the 55-year-old version of the characters? Because I suppose the younger, the version of them in their 30s and the incident happens, that seems like something which I would imagine is easier to get into the headspace of what it must be like, or that kind of idea. But then how do you work out what would these people be like 25 years later after something like this has happened? How do you get into that? How do you work out what those characters are then becoming?
I'm pretty obsessed with character, I suppose, and I spend a lot of time just kind of mulling them over. So there's two there are those two timelines in the book in terms of there's Isabella's voice, which is first person, and quite a kind of like leave it all, like put it all on the page, in terms of just kind of like there's pretty much nothing she doesn't disclose, and I did probably, as you could kind of predict, like I found that writing more natural. That is more like my kind of personality. It's more how I've written in the past. So that and it is again, I suppose, the fact that for a lot of it, she's looking back, but she's this kind of 20-30-year-old woman. And the other half of the book is pretty much exclusively from Edward's very close third person perspective. And yet he's a 55-year-old man. And I guess the thing, apart from kind of just being obsessed with the characters, is probably reading, and just reading a huge amount to try to get the tone that I want. So I don't think I kind of read many books like with an eye to sort of like necessary sort of research in the strictest sense, but I think I read a lot that I feel gives that kind of same impression or atmosphere.
Okay.
And so, because Edward is a very like quite standoffish, reserved, and kind of even man, I guess I wanted to kind of read books like, for example, like Remains of the Day by Kazuo Shigeru. I guess is a perfect example of a book where the narrator doesn't want to give anything away, and the writing is relatively emotionless, but still by the end you feel kind of a great deal for Stevens. And I guess that was kind of what I wanted to try to grapple with, that kind of emotional reserve that unintentionally tells the reader an awful lot.
And talking about your process as well a little bit. I mean, you said you edit as you go. Do you sit down and you've been carrying these ideas about for a long time in terms of exploring these ideas, but did you have a plan? Do you plan things out, or do you explore it on the page and just try and see where it takes you?
I like to know where I'm going. So for all three of my novels, I kind of know what the last scene will be and what the main kind of plot points, I guess, will be. I mean, that's like 6 bullet points. That makes it sound probably grander than it is. I find that I kind of mostly work things out as I go, because I think you spend longer with the characters. You kind of do get to know them better. And I don't want to say something quite as pretentious as that they surprise you, but I think it's that almost makes it sound like some kind of magical realization. Whereas what I think it is instead is that as you write, you've spent so many hours of your life and put so much more investment into like this story. So it seems natural to me that then things will shift and change as you kind of realize more about the characters, as you think about them more, and as you just spend more time, frankly, just writing. And it is certainly the case that some of my favorite scenes in The Death of Us, and some of the things I think are most telling about the characters, weren't planned at all. There's a scene where Edward and Isabel go for dinner with 2 of the other victims, which was completely unplanned, and which is probably one of my favorite scenes in the book, one of the kind of scenes I'm most kind of proud of. So I think it's nice to leave a bit of space for the stuff that comes as you go. But I do like to have an idea of the final scene, just so I can kind of picture where everyone's going to end up.
And what's your process when you come to actually write? Because I think I read that you're not like super precious about always writing at your desk, and you'll write bits on your phone and stuff. Are you happy to kind of jump around and just grab time whenever you can, or do you try to kind of have a routine that you stick to in some way?
I guess I have a routine in that I have sort of a certain number of hours and days a week. So I write generally sort of like from about 10 till 4 on Monday to Thursday. And then I try to write a bit in the evening if I can. And it's that evening time where I'm like, if I'm doing it sort of like on the sofa on my phone, that's fine. If if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I guess I just feel that often, lines will come or ideas, and I'm definitely not precious about if I've got sort of like 10 minutes in the car, like waiting for a child to finish whatever they're doing, about just writing on my phone and just emailing it to myself. Same with, like a bus home or a train. I feel like it's just useful. It's so useful to have that ability just to note something down.
But writing 10 till 4 is quite a shift. I mean, I presume you're not constantly writing in that time. Are you including sort of even reading about stuff or something to inspire you and stuff like that in that period?
Yeah, absolutely. And food.
Yeah, lots of food.
4-hour lunch.
Maybe get 30 minutes writing done at the end of it.
Exactly.
And
sorry, on you go.
I was just going to ask about the edit process that happens. I mean, obviously, you edit as you go, fine. But then, as you said, when you signed with your agent, you had a kind of 4 or 5 month process of editing. And how do you find that process? How do you like getting notes? Do you like getting comments? Do you get stuff that you think that's totally, they've not picked up what I was wanting at all? I've not made that clear, or they don't get it. How do you deal with notes and comments like that?
Does anyone like getting notes?
I think no. Just probably answered that.
Oh yeah, I think my dream life as a writer, if you could just be a ridiculous human being, will probably just write endless first drafts. That is my favorite part. That said, all right, I do, I say that with absolute caveat. I think getting editing notes is such a privilege. Like the idea that somebody will read what you've written and they have their own kind of like thoughts and ways to make it better is that, I feel it's something like you dream of, right? When you're writing as a kid, when you're writing your first novel, hoping it gets published. So it's incredible. I mean, I think that for the first, you read the editing note and obviously you spend the day bemoaning the fact that somebody has clearly misunderstood your genius. And within a day, you're like, oh yeah, that is awful. That's sort of my process. And because I had a really difficult editing process with Day One, when I also saw very starkly how much better it got from the first draft. So I think as someone now has like real faith in that process too, and an ability to see, it sometimes feels impossible what's being asked, but it isn't impossible. And you ultimately come away with a book that's going to be so much better for you and for readers. And yeah, sort of like hard and bloody, but absolutely worth it.
Yeah. I mean, you look at, you said that at Day One, your second book was a really hard write and a hard editing process. When you look at it now compared to, you've completed the process 3 times now, what do you think it was that made the second book so hard? I mean, obviously, I guess you had that kind of second book syndrome and the pressure of writing again, trying to compete with the first book, etc. But also, was it a case of the idea not being fleshed out enough, or had you what was it that you would do differently now, I think, to avoid the struggles you had with book 2?
I think that it was way too sprawling. I don't think I've kind of quite settled on what I wanted the book to be about. I also think the characters, essentially, I'm going to give a little list. It's going to be about every component of the book.
It's just wrong and
just everything. The edit, it was a very sort of deep. There were deep structural problems, I would say, and that I think is much more difficult than, for example, this kind of particular plot line should be bigger or smaller, or this character, maybe they need to be a bit more sympathetic. I think if it's kind of like, is this really how we want to tell the story? That feels like a kind of huge rewrite, really. And one of the perspectives, about 50% of the novel, changed from third person to first person. And, you know, as with like any writer, you get that note and you know that's just going to be huge. In my head, like
cool.
Control F, right? Like I wish. So things like that, I think, are just so kind of all encompassing. They're kind of what the novel actually is going to be. I don't think the notes I got for Girl A or The Death of Us had gone into were even close to that. They were much more of a type of, you know, these characters are strong and this character, you know, we need like a bit more from them. You know, they don't feel quite as real as the others. Something like that is almost like a fun fix, like just to deal with like a particular character. It feels very specific. Whereas I think if there's a general problem, if there's something that is going to affect pretty much every page of the novel, it's tricky.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously when you were writing Girl A, you had, you know, all the time you wanted, I guess, to finish that novel and you know, make it as good as you can make it. But do you feel with Day One, with The Death of Us, have you felt more, has it helped being sort of tied down by a deadline or something like that, as opposed to having that freedom to just finish it when you think it's ready?
Weirdly, the experience is that I haven't found that different.
Right.
And some of it, I think, is that I do have quite a pragmatic view of novels and of writing them. And I think for certain writers, I know it's been the case that you can work on something for a decade and you might produce an absolute masterpiece. For me, I think it's a law of it's diminishing returns after a certain amount of time, and I do believe quite strongly that applies to a lot of authors. That you could spend another 2 years making something incrementally more perfect, perhaps, but you can also have this idea that it's a great story and there has to be that line that you draw somewhere where you say, I'm kind of content. I don't think you have to be happy. Nobody ever gets there. But I think there has to if you want to create a book that people will read, there has to be some degree of pragmatism to when you stop. And I look back already with The Death of Us and I'm like, oh, I would have added this. I would have really liked there to be a scene about that. Like, I think, that should have been shown, or that was a bit unnecessary, that paragraph. I already think that, but I don't regret the fact that it's out there, because otherwise I just think I would never write anything, and that perfect book doesn't exist. It exists in your head. It doesn't exist as something that people will ever read.
I mean, I think most authors could tweak their work forever. There's always something that they could think, oh, well, maybe that could be a bit better or whatever. But like you say, there has to come a time when you say, sort of, that's it. But also often what happens, I think, with a lot of authors is the next idea has started to take hold. So you're kind of naturally, maybe that's a sign that you're saying this one is nearing the end and it's time to move on to the next one, sort of a thing. I'm not sure.
Maybe. So I often feel like I get the next idea about like 50%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, too early.
When it gets really hard.
Exactly.
The book that you're not writing is surely always the easiest one to write.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it sounds like you've got quite a commercial mindset then, I guess, in terms of how you view your books, and because I know there's some authors who view their books as they're done when they're done, and they'll go out the way I want them to go out, and it's not about making money, it's about putting art out there. Whereas I suppose other people are more of the mindset of, no, I want to have a regular cadence of releases, I want to make a living off it, I want people to buy it, and I'll move on to the next book and start writing because I want there to be content. And where do you fall in that scale between those two?
It's such a good question. I'd like to think that I fall it's somewhere right between them, because I think I do care potentially sometimes too much about writing on like a sentence level. Like I really do care about, and maybe this is a legal curse. I do care a lot about like the specific words, and I'm quite kind of obsessive about getting like sentence by sentence everything as I want it. And I'm definitely that writer who is still, as we're about to go to print, I'm still sending the editor list of like, we just changed these like 6 like columns. Is that okay? And my editor's like, yeah, no. So I'm definitely that person. But I think on a kind of on a greater scale, I also do see the need to kind of call it a day. At a center point, and finding the balance on that kind of graph, I don't think is easy, because most writers are like that, aren't they? You want stuff out there, you want kind of a novel that people will enjoy and read, but you also have your kind of like little insecurities, and you want it to be the best book it can be. So I feel like right in between those things, and possibly veering between them on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, fair enough.
And, just speaking about, I suppose, linked to the idea of being commercial and stuff like that, we've talked about your books, and broadly speaking, I guess they would be categorized in the crime genre. But as you said, with The Death of Us and stuff, it's essentially a love story with crime, a crime angle in it, essentially. Do you would you consider yourself to be a crime author? Would you put yourself in that category?
Yeah, like proudly, certainly. It's the distinctions feel very arbitrary at times.
Yeah, I think so.
Particularly that distinction between kind of like crime versus, or actually pretty much any genre fiction versus literary fiction. Where does that? Yeah. Where do you draw that line? Is it based on the cover? Is it based on the words? Like I still don't know, and I still kind of I completely understand it from a commercial perspective, but I don't like it. Who does? So no, I guess I would still think of my books as being crime writing. And when you look at kind of like a crime festival, and you see the differences of approaches, I don't see that as a sort of like a stretch. I just see it as this kind of quite glorious thing, I suppose, that you can have this vast array of different pieces of work that all fit under this kind of quite like cool, like collaborative umbrella. And that feels really nice to me, actually. And I kind of love reading other crime books that surprise me, like on the ranges of darkness and light and romance and horror and sci-fi that you see kind of all blended in there. So long may we kind of keep pushing exactly what a crime book is.
Yeah. The genre is very much it is a marketing thing, really, isn't it? It's where can they put these books on the shelf, essentially, I suppose, is why they categorize something as one thing or another. But there are so many books that touch across different, like you've just said, you can get SF crime stories, and what some people will say they're SF books, some people will say they're crime books and things like that. But I did want to ask about, I suppose, staying on the commercial theme. You sold the film rights to Girly as well, which must have been, again, must have been a terrible thing to do as well. But has there been any movement with that? Maybe you can't speak about it. I don't know.
There is a script. I think I'm allowed to say that there is a script, which I absolutely love, actually.
Oh, nice. Cool.
And I think that's pretty much all I can say.
Yeah. Okay.
Say. Cool. But yeah, it's sort of like in its kind of like all the wheels turning TV. TV status.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's that thing, isn't it? It would be so cool just to see characters on screen from any of my novels. I would just find that absolutely amazing. So I keep.
What's it like reading a script of your book, of your characters that someone else has written?
Well, I'm a ridiculous fan of TV. I watch a lot of TV, and again, kind of like with the games, like I see it as a massive source of inspiration for writing. So just a joy, to be honest, an absolute joy. And I feel like, because I do visualize scenes in quite a like cinematic way in my head, like I have ideas of like what song would be playing when per scene. I think a lot of writers do. So it was, it's just been kind of glorious to think about how that would look, and obviously what dialogue is chosen and what dialogue goes, and the additional kind of elements about characters that somebody else has imagined. I see that as a joy, really, rather than an imposition.
Were you surprised at some of the choices that the other person made, good and bad, for the changes that they made to turn it into the script?
No, not really. I was pretty open-minded in a way, I suppose. I didn't have kind of any desperate desire to write, to write it myself either. So I just found it like kind of great to see somebody else's imagination working with your story and your characters. Just it's kind of like fascinating. I guess no, I wasn't super surprised, at least not with kind of what I've seen so far. Yeah.
Very exciting.
I mean, you wouldn't. You said you wouldn't want to write it. You wouldn't have wanted to write that yourself. But would you ever want to write in a different medium?
I would like to write for TV or film, but not with my own material. It is what I would say. Part of me feels like, for you live a novel for quite a long time, and you are so invested in it, and you care so much about it. But I think then to sort of go back to the drawing board with those characters and that story, I would find quite challenging, actually. I think that there's certainly kind of things that I might have a strong opinion on, or would you potentially do differently. Like if I saw a script, I feel like I'm very, very protective over my endings in general, as I sort of said earlier. Like that's something I've had from the very beginning. But I think I would love to write an original idea in that space, but possibly not an adaptation of one of my own books. How do you feel about it? Would you?
I mean, sometimes, I think, it's like having that distance, isn't it? And it can be difficult to have that distance from your own story, especially a novel. Like you say, you've spent so many hours writing it, you've been so close to it, that I think someone else's eye is helpful to telling that story in a different way, which sometimes, I think often the best adaptations do make some changes to the core story because they're telling it in a different format, aren't they? So, and I think sometimes if authors are involved in the adaptation, it can be too, I mean, there's obviously a balance, but it can be too loyal to the original, and it doesn't quite work for some reason.
Yeah, because there's that hesitation to move away because you've already done it as you wanted to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I suppose also, I guess there's that trust in that. I mean, I've never written a script before, but this person has. They know what they're doing. They know how TV works. Who's best placed to know what to cut out of the book, as you say. I would feel nervous about that. I'd like to give it a go, but I'll be scared of torpedoing the entire project because they would just say this is awful. Just cancel the TV show.
I'm sure. Are there not? I'm sure I've heard that there are like some deals where they'll give the author. They'll say you can write. As part of the
you can write one
wooing
episode
of them. You can write You can write an episode of the series, and then often what happens is that they will write the episode and go thanks, and then just throw that away.
Straight in the shredder.
Exactly.
Say proper script writer, please.
Yeah. But,
so what's next then? What have you got? What you've got? In fact, I don't know what we've got coming next because that was your paperback just come out last month. I think, time recording.
Book 4 is underway, and actually I say underway. I'm more than halfway through, which I think often feels like quite a good place to be, because I think at that point it's undeniably going to be a book, a good book. Who knows? But it's undeniably going to be a novel. Yeah. And that always feels quite nice, I think, to get over that kind of like hill of the kind of 40,000, 50,000 words. Just working on finishing that, which will hopefully be out in 2027.
Excellent.
Nice.
It's got no title, and is clearly unfinished. And I've never had one of my own titles retained for publication.
Oh, right.
anywhere.
Okay.
Oh, really?
So even if I shared a title in theory, it wouldn't be. The
What
case.
was your title for The Death of Us?
Statements?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And
Oh, and was it
Girly?
not?
What
Yeah, it
was
was Girly. Yeah.
Girl A had an awful title. It was called The Lifehouse when I sent it out to agents,
The
which is the name of the
Lifehouse?
church within that
Okay,
the
okay.
father creates. And as my agent said, well, that sounds like a poorly selling self-help book, which not even like a good selling self-help book, like a bad one.
Oh dear. Right. Well, those were the main questions that we had for you. But we always like to end every podcast by asking our guests the same questions. The first of which is, what was the last book that you read?
The last book I read was Heart the Lover by Lily King, which is a gorgeous, very funny, desperately sad campus novel that I couldn't recommend more.
Cool.
Nice. What about the last film you watched?
The last film I watched, I've forgotten the name. It's the Ralph Fiennes film about who's going to be the next Pope, the Conclave. Is that right?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
Conclave.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I really enjoyed. Has a slightly baffling twist, which I have a lot to say about, which I won't say now. But
I've not seen it yet. I must watch it. But yeah.
I liked it a lot. Yeah, I was amazed how kind of gripping it was for just being conversations. Like, it's just folk talking in different rooms, but it holds you the whole time. The whole way
Yeah,
through.
beautifully filmed as well. I thought, and weirdly tense, as you said.
Yeah.
Oddly tense. You know, a twist's coming, and it wasn't the twist I wanted it to be. That's what I'll say.
Okay, so I read the book, so I knew where it was going to go, and it was very faithful to the book. I remember thinking similar to, I think, to what you thought about the film, and I read the book, kind of thinking, oh, that was not what I was expecting it to end on. Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
Now, I'm going to ask you after we stop recording what it is. I'm going to spoil myself.
No,
'cause I
don't
need to know
spoil
now.
it.
And what about TV? What have you been watching on TV?
Obviously, The Traitors.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well done, Harriet. She was fantastic and iconic. But I'm watching at present Industry.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
It is
yeah.
the fourth season of Industry, which is one of my favorite shows. So just an absolute delight to have it back in kind of like January, February. And I feel like it's a show that's really, really morphed from its kind of very specific trading floor beginning to be this kind of epic commentary, really, on life in the UK.
I only watched season 1, but
Same. Yeah. I saw the first one. That was,
I
enjoyed
liked it, but I've just never gone back to it. But yeah, it sort of seems to have become, it's essentially being compared to Succession and stuff now as the sort of new Succession or whatever. So need to
I
get
feel like
back
it captured the kind of. I remember talking to you about this, Mark, when we watched it. The what it was like as a trainee lawyer.
Yeah.
If it captured that kind of like. Kind of stressful nervousness, don't know what you're doing. People are asking, giving you jobs, and you're like kind of shitting yourself a little bit. And yeah, I felt it got that very well. That gave you flashbacks 3 times to.
One time, Tarek,
Handing
you
it
must
back to
tell the podcast listeners your story about being on the bus.
Oh God! So I had
I
a.
can do it now.
I can do it now. I
Yeah,
had a
yeah,
court
go for
hearing. I had a court hearing, and in the court session in Edinburgh, so where I can't appear, so you had to have an advocate appear. So I missed my bus, and I was, it was fine. I'll get the next bus, and it was quite a journey by bus, and I got the bus about 9 o'clock. I had been caught by 10, and the bus I thought it was going to go one way, and it basically took a different route, and it turned off, and it started going through the houses, and I was like, shit, I'm going to be late. The office was like phoning me and saying, well, just checking, are you almost there? And I was like, yeah, almost there. And I was like, fuck it. So I rang the bell and got off, and I was like, I'm just going to run. And I was running down the bridges towards court. And I remember I was going so fast, like my feet were like, I was flying down this road, and I wasn't even looking. When I was crossing over roads, I was whizzing down the street, and my head was like, if you don't slow down, you're going to trip and fall, and you're going to hurt yourself. And I was like, but maybe I want to trip and fall, because if I hurt myself, they can't shout at me for being late. I was like, if I'm in hospital with a broken leg, they can't be angry. So I was like, I'll run faster. And I didn't fall, and I was late, and I got shouted at. So it was the worst of all worlds.
It's quite bad, isn't it? When you're like, maybe an injury wouldn't be the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
happened today?
Exactly.
Yeah. But yes, the final thing we always do is super quick fire either or, where there's no right answer to any of these really, apart from the last one. But we'll start off with,
Oh dear.
I'm going to go for Cloud or Aries.
Cloud.
Straight in there, nice.
I take it that's a Final Fantasy thing. 'cause
It's a
that's
Final
what
Fantasy
people
7
are
question.
doing.
Yeah, I did have. I wasn't sure if you played Final Fantasy 8. My original question was going to be Cloud or Squall, but I wasn't sure if
Cloud.
you'd. Still Cloud, okay. Really, really love that Cloud. Okay, that's fine.
TV
But any other character.
TV or cinema?
TV.
Night Owl or Early Bird?
Early bird.
Music or no music when you're writing?
When writing, no music. When thinking about writing, music.
Right.
Okay. And last one, I'm going to go for ebook or audiobook.
Audiobook.
Now ask your real question, Tarek.
Real book or ebook?
Real book.
I'm afraid that was the wrong answer. The correct answer was ebook. No one ever picks ebook. I just feel sorry for ebook, so I always try to push it. But no one ever. I think I had one person last week. Maybe I said ebook
Yeah,
the first time in
rare.
about
I mean, I
2
would
years.
like to see a count, but I think maybe
It'd be
10 people in
embarrassing.
250
Yeah.
episodes have picked ebook.
Why would you pick real book or audiobook over ebook?
I think an audiobook is quite a different experience that I really enjoy. So if I have like tasks to do, I think I've transformed my approach to tasks, like taking out the bins, by having audiobooks. Like it just makes life more enjoyable having like a book accompanying you.
Yeah.
And I also really enjoy the kind of acting too. Like I feel like I change my mind on characters if they're, spoken in a different
Yeah,
way.
the narrator makes
Yeah,
a
okay.
massive
Yeah.
difference, definitely.
Yeah, huge, really.
Yeah, it can
huge.
ruin a book. There's books I've listened to and gone off and then read later and loved, and it's just been because the person did a bad job of the voice acting, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and vice versa. I feel like sometimes you might be unsympathetic, and then you get like a really good
Yeah.
narrator who makes me like more understanding of a character.
Yeah.
And real books, I just sort of like holding it. I like to be able to see where I'm up to. I like to be able to just flick back very, very easily, and I often will remember where a particular kind of paragraph was on the page, so I find it easier to kind of go back and find it. I like to turn down the corners of quotes that I've enjoyed. And I like having a house full of, I don't know, I like sort of being surrounded by books. My husband likes it less. He thinks that there needs to be a cull. And I don't believe there should be a cull. So maybe he would be the second person to go ebook.
Yes. We'll have him on next. Mark will not be happy with the turn down the corners of the pages. That's
No, I've got a stupid obsession with, like, I would pick real book, but like I don't even like breaking the spine of my book when I'm reading it.
Mark will read
Like
the
I
books
hold it in a strange
peeling
way,
open
so
like
that I
this,
can-
just to one eye. Yeah.
But yeah, thanks very much. That was great.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. Yeah, thanks so much.
Well, I always love hearing that story, Tarek. I was actually, I was at the law firm when that happened, that incident. So it's always
Yeah, it was
always
I
entertaining.
still remember being called in to the partner's office when I got back and just being told what the hell was wrong with you and why did you leave it so late, and I didn't have any excuse. I was just a lazy bastard, basically. To get the bus.
So nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. If anything, I've actually gotten lazier, so it's been great.
Yeah, so thanks very much to Abigail for coming on there. I really enjoyed that chat. She writes brilliant books, and I do like the fact, it is an interesting thing to do, to explore. A lot of crime books are about the incident, about what happens in the build up to the incident and solving it, and exploring the aftermath of these incidents. I'm thinking someone like Chris Whitaker did it as well a bit in and I can't remember the name.
We
of the
begin
book,
at the
but-
end.
Yes, that one. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And it allows for a much more reflective character study, I think, if you do that, tell that sort of story.
I agree with that. It is nice because I completely agree. So many crime books are all about the crime and the investigation, and which is obviously makes sense. But it's nice sometimes to kind of have a story that has a chance to breathe and to look at the impact that crime has had on the people around it, and it is a different place, and it's a different book because it's not up so much about the who did it or even the why did it sometimes, but it's more just the kind of impact of what has that done to the people that were affected by it. And it's a nice change.
Did it?
What done did it?
Yeah,
I like it.
We need to come up with a better one than that. But The Death of Us is out now, so you can pick that up. And thanks again to Abigail for coming on. But next week we have we're taking a different direction, I guess. With I think it is a crime book as well, but it's a very different direction.
Yeah, we're chatting with the very fun Stephen Fishback, who now, if you're a US listener, he may well be a household name to you. And here in the UK, perhaps not so much. He was a big star of the TV show Survivor, which I don't think ever really. I remember watching a bit of it when I was younger, but it never really.
Recently, I think
they might have, to be honest,
in the past couple of years. I think.
Possibly. It never really took off, though, right? Yeah, it's massive.
So this year
I didn't realize how big it is in the US.
Series of Survivor, which is mad.
So a huge reality show. People are dumped in an island and have to do tasks. I don't know why it's not bigger in the UK. We love this kind of stuff over here. We love reality shows and surviving shows. Anyway, he was a part of that. He got to the final in 2008 in his first appearance in Survivor. Didn't win it, unfortunately. But he's written a book, fictional book about a kind of reality star on a surviving show, or a survivor type show. But beyond that, he's also had a lot of experience writing speech writing for Stevie Wonder at the United Nations. He's written for People magazine. He's done campaigns for MTV on mental health and discrimination, etc. So a really eclectic collection of writing he's done, and now he's moving into the novel sphere, and he's just a really fun, interesting guy to chat with.
Yeah, it is. It's a really fun and interesting interview, and I can already sense the cynicism from some people. Reality TV star writing a book, especially if it's about a reality TV star in the book. But he is like you say, he's got proper writing credentials. He wrote this book. It's not ghostwritten or anything like that. So it is a really good, fun interview. So please do tune in for that one. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please do take the time to rate and review us on your favourite podcast app, or give us a thumbs up, subscribe on YouTube if you're watching it there, leave a comment. That makes a huge difference. Yeah. All of these things make a huge difference to the podcast to help us to keep being found by new people. Tarek, how can they get in touch with us?
Well, a number of ways they can get in touch. They can send us an email, which is podcast@rightgear.co.uk. They can look for us on all the usual social medias. Just search for @UKPage1. They can go into YouTube, as Marco said, and they can leave a comment or a question below any of the videos that we have up there. They can
write us a
letter.
letter.
My home address. Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
Let me draw a line.
I think
there.
that's
enough ways to get in touch.
There's a lot of ways to get in touch with us, so that's fine. We'd love to hear from you, and hope to see you on the next episode.
See you later.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode like these ones down here.
And if you want to get in touch, you can do so by finding us on our social media platforms up here, or drop us a comment way down below there.
But otherwise, thanks for listening, and join us for the next episode.
See you later.